All right, so I'll have you just say and spell your name.
Barbara Buckley, Barbara-Buckley.
Perfect. And the title I can give you?
For this purpose, I'm leading the rapid response strike force on the unemployment benefit issue.
Perfect. All right, so I guess online there's a bunch of Facebook groups. I actually interviewed a gentleman today. He got paid this week for a PUA claimant. What's going on with that? Are you noticing more people getting paid?
Yeah, so since the strike force started about a month ago and our new acting director was appointed, we have processed about 14,000 claims in the backlog. So I think you're slowly beginning to see people, share the good news that they've been paid, and we're thrilled at that. But we have a lot more progress to accomplish. We are continuing to engage in plans to reduce the backlog, including a team of 30 adjudicators reporting to work at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning to try to see if they can get, another 1,000 or 2,000 people paid. So we're not resting on this progress. We're pushing through to get 100% of the backlog reduced.
Let's talk about the staffing levels. I know Britt, on our previous interview, you talked about adding people from another department, bringing in retired employees. Where are we with that?
Yeah, so 200 welfare eligibility workers finished 2 weeks of training, and soon we're going to deploy them on people stuck between two systems. So some people are eligible under PUA, some people are eligible under regular UI. So many people have applied for PUA and have been waiting, but they're really eligible in UI. And it's federal law, we have no discretion over it. So what we're going to do with these workers is have them reach out to people and say, your claim was filed in the wrong system. Can we take a claim from you over the phone to get you paid in the right system? So rather than having them wait and get frustrated and call into the call center, actually proactively try to resolve their case.
Has there been a change with the phone system? I don't know, or maybe the protocol with the people who are answering the phone? Because the guy I interviewed, he said this hasn't happened before, but he got through one online and the person basically looked at his stuff and said, okay, this is correct, you're good. And that same week he had money. Has there been any difference with that?
The call volume to the call center has been reduced because more people are getting paid. So the more people that get paid, the less people that call, the more likely you are to get through and not be frustrated. So that's improved. But we also announced today that we're bringing the call center completely back under DETR so that it is managed, by the state and not by an outside contractor. And we think that's going to keep people from being bounced back and forth and having to wait for someone to review a claim. So that's going to be another big, big improvement in the system.
Do you think that DETR has the staff for that, or will there be another wave of staff coming on?
So it's going to be staggered. What the deputy director is doing right now is creating the right staffing level. So some will be existing employees, but we'll manage it. Some might be contract staff. So, because we only have a short period of time to get it up and running and won't be able to just do the usual hiring process for.
She just joined it. Let me add her. It's going. There we go.
There we go.
Hey there.
Zoom in a little bit. Oh, we're getting me set up. I can't do this on my own.
I was gonna say that's a far shot, but we got it.
There you
go.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem. I answered some questions, and then whatever you have left, you can ask whoever you want.
Great.
And I'll just, Elisa, I know how your name is, but in case someone else goes through this interview, can I just have you say it real quick?
Sure, it's Elisa Cafferata, and I'm the acting director of DETR.
Just spell your last name for me.
It's Cafferata is C-A-F-F as in Frank, E-R-A-T-A.
Okay, so we just got finished talking about the call center transferring back to DETR and the employees that will be operating that. Is there going to be more employees coming in to help with that, or how's that going to work?
So we're actually working on our staffing plan and sort of maximizing all of the resources that we've got. So I think we've discussed before, we have 200 folks coming in from welfare who are in their second week of training. We're going to be having some of those in the call center, but a large number of them we're going to have making calls out to the folks who were told after they applied in PUA that they needed to go back to regular UI and go through that eligibility first. So they'll actually be reaching out to them. We will have some of our staff people who are trained as adjudicators and can resolve cases at a higher level. And we probably will have some vendors, staff that will also fill in as we're making this transition so we can make it as smooth as possible. But we always knew we were going to have to bring PUA back into DETR because that program expires. So it just made sense with how complicated people's cases are to bring it back sooner and get started on that.
So do you think it'll help the system?
Absolutely, I think so. I think we just didn't expect to have the number of people in with eligibility in both systems or applications in both systems. Alorica is our PUA call center only. That's what they were trained for. So we knew we would ultimately get here. We just didn't realize how quickly we would get here. And this is going to allow us to manage sort of issues as they develop, provide the training, make sure that folks can answer the questions that are coming in and be more responsive. So we're really excited about working with them to make this transition.
And we had Barbara and I were talking earlier about it seems like more PUA claimants were getting processed. I follow the Facebook pages, and I've just been seeing more than I have before of people getting paid. Do you think moving forward from here, we're just going to see that continue, or what do you expect with that?
Yeah, we've been working through in both systems, trying to process as many folks as we can. So we've really steadily been working through PUA. We do, I don't know if Barbara talked about, we've got about 30 folks coming in this Saturday just to focus on PUA claims that are awaiting some kind of decision, resolution, someone having the time to look at the documents. So we're really focusing on who's been waiting to get a resolution and sort of tackling each one of those groups as we can and getting them resolved and when they're eligible, getting them paid. So yes, I think you're going to continue to see that.
Perfect. And she answered the questions about staffing that I had already. So I have a couple other questions. If someone had lost their job due to COVID and they were also given a severance, are they still allowed to collect unemployment? How does that work? I've been coming across a whole situation.
Yeah, so their claim might be adjusted, right? So they wouldn't get payment for the time that they received. It's called deductible income under the federal law. So there might be a period of time when they may not be eligible, but after that expires, they will be eligible. And the staff, they do sort that out in the processing of the case.
Does it make it a little more complicated, I'm guessing, for them to figure that out?
Yeah, I think one thing that Elisa and I have discovered in the last 30 days, everybody thinks their case is easy, but the federal laws are very complicated. They require you to consider a number of steps. And so you have to go through those, and that's what takes more time than we would like to see.
And does the same thing count to paid time off? I mean, if you're paid that out, does that have to be deducted as well? Same thing?
Yes, same thing.
Okay, interesting. What about if your account's frozen and you have to pay money back that dates back for months? But I mean, let's say, for example, someone was getting a severance. I mean, how does that work with that?
Well, the federal government gives, again, they control these two programs. So they issue overpayment guidance, and they tell you how you can handle things. So there's rules if it's an old UI overpayment, what steps need to be followed. There's special rules on fraud overpayments. Then there's different rules on PUA overpayments. And then what if you owe an overpayment from another state? So it requires the division to follow certain rules. And so all of those are being applied. And actually, we're relooking at all of those next week just to make sure we're all on the same page to be able to communicate with people so they understand what the rules are.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys know, there's several posts about overpayment. What do I do? If someone is, let's say they have been getting money and then all of a sudden account frozen and they ask to pay money back, how do you find out what that's for? Is it because of a severance, or is it because of fraud? What did it tell them?
Yeah, it usually does. And it could be like, for example, maybe someone didn't really qualify for the program. So they may be asked to pay it back. And sometimes people can pay it back if they're still getting their benefits, like from a portion of it. Sometimes people can't pay it back right now, right? If they're out of work. And so they just make arrangements when they are able to, right? So that is one of the things Elisa and I were talking about earlier. We've received a lot of questions about that, and we'd love to put out some guidance to people so they can understand the rules and what their options are.
So that's still in the works.
Yes, it is.
I would just add, sort of at the very basic level, when you get a notice or a notification from DETR, it will generally give you the determination that was made and why it was made, and then what your next steps and options are. A lot of these forms and letters and notifications were written years ago. And so, they might be a little bit difficult to read through, but we ask folks to just take the time, read through them, and make sure that they're sort of following the next steps, because sometimes there are timelines that people need to comply with. There are appeal options. Usually there is, if you did get money that you should not have gotten, or there's been a determination that you'll need to pay something back, there's an option for a payment plan. So it's just important for folks to read those as carefully as they can and reach out and sort of at least start the conversation about what that looks like. And that should give them the best understanding of their options.
For people who say have the deductions, I've interviewed several people, but one person that comes to mind, they're asked to pay the money back, but then there's people working 1 day a week who are getting $600 as well. How does that, is that something that's going to be taken into account moving forward? Is what's fair?
It's all determined by federal law. The federal government, because like for the PUA program, they're paying for it all. So they pretty much have set all the rules. The same with the unemployment system. So for example, if they say, oh, well, you had a week's worth of income and you received a week's worth of unemployment, you have to pay 100% of that back. And, so there's, in some of these areas, there's little discretion. Where there is discretion, I think the goal of the state is to be fair and to recognize we're hardest hit and to come up with payment plans and to do that kind of thing. So those are some of the policies we're looking at, but there's not a ton of flexibility.
And if someone is, for example, feels that they shouldn't have to pay it back, do you suggest maybe filing an appeal? What do you suggest?
I think what we say to folks is try your best to become informed. Reach out, look at the website, look at the rules, because some of the federal guidelines I don't think are the right. I don't like them, but it's the law, right? So an appeal that is based on a clear-cut federal law probably won't be successful, right? So I think the best piece of advice is to get as educated as you can. There's support groups, there's information on the web, you know, get as educated as you can about your rights.
I don't know what the options are when it comes to paying back, but there are options, and you guys are still going to still work on that next week. Are there any other changes that are coming soon that people should know about that you think that should be noted at all?
Well, I think our goal is to, the focus has always been on getting through the backlog, getting caught up on getting folks' claims resolved. We are doing our best job to make sure folks know the fastest way to get to getting their cases resolved and getting payment if they're eligible. So I think I would say there have been some folks, some posts in social media we've seen that are not accurate in terms of suggesting that people stay in PUA even if they've been told by the state that they have to go back to regular UI first and exhaust those benefits, and then they can come back to PUA. So I would say get informed from reliable sources, and that will help us, help them get their cases resolved. We do have these staff folks we are bringing on, so I think we're starting to see some of the call volumes go down as we see more cases get resolved. That's fewer people calling through, so we should be able to get to folks more quickly as we're processing these applications. So I think that people are going to more and more people will start to see that difference and be able to get a resolution.
Perfect. Last question here on the lost wages program.
Mm-hmm.
1 second. That's cool. Lost wages program. Is that still in application process, right?
Our application is in. The federal FEMA asked for some additional information in some of the parts of the application, but it's complete. Everything's in. We expect to hear very quickly. So as soon as we get the approval, then we will start a plan, probably 4 to 6 weeks, to make the system updates so we can get this money to eligible Nevadans. The few notes, not everybody who got the $600 bump in unemployment will be eligible for this $300 bump, unfortunately. And again, these are federal rules. These are not our rules. So not everyone's going to get it. We know that it for sure will get 3 weeks. We will immediately ask for an additional 3 weeks, but we know that the program will run out of money for sure. So we don't know if we'll even get that second 3 weeks, but we're applying for it immediately after we get our approval. So that is what we are hoping for, and we hope to have good news very soon.
Perfect. I'm going to stop recording it before it gets too long.